Howdy and welcome to Chapter 16. In Chapter 16 we're going to talk about international human resources. In Chapter 2 we talked about how globalization is a trend in human resource management. So I wanted to follow up with this chapter so we could go more in detail of why that is and the various challenges for HR. The learning objectives for Chapter 16 include being able to describe the growth of international business. You'll be able to identify and discuss global issues in international HR. You'll be able to discuss human resource management in international business, identify and discuss domestic issues in international HR, and lastly, describe the issues involved in managing international transfers and assignments. So what is causing the trend toward expansion into global markets? Several things have been identified that are causing this trend. So first, foreign countries provide new markets. Okay, and some of those markets are very lucrative for U.S. companies. There are products that haven't been introduced in those countries yet, or the population is very good to target for new products and new markets. Another reason is due to low labor rates. Okay, and that's a major reason why a lot of companies have expanded into places like China and India in order to take advantage of the low labor rates. And in some cases, the workers are very skilled, such as workers in India. Another reason, it's also important, is the advance in telecommunications. Okay, so telecommunications and in information technology. And this has caused a major shift in that now companies can meet with other people through telecommunication networks and deal globally on a much easier basis. It really has caused the borders to really come down as far as being able to take a company globally. Okay, in addition to that, trade agreements have played a big part in this. Countries get together and decide on procedures and policies to make things easier, okay, for trade. For instance, NAFTA was the North American Free Trade Agreement. In Europe, we had the Maastricht Treaty, which created one big trading zone in Europe, created the euro as a method of currency. In addition to this, the World Trade Organization was established to help countries with trade disputes. Okay, so what's happened, all of this has kind of created huge demands, okay, on human resource management. We're going to talk about what some of those demands consist of. There are three major global issues in human resource management that we need to consider. Okay, the first issue is to develop an international HRM strategy. Okay. The second major issue is to develop an understanding of the cultural environment. Okay, and this is going to include all things about the culture and the people. Okay, environment. And then thirdly, we need to develop an understanding of the political and legal environments. Okay, so these are all the environmental factors, okay, and that we have to consider when we go to another country. Okay, so if we start here at the first one, developing an international HRM strategy, the major issue here is to develop a strategy concerning staffing. And it's very complex because we have several choices. Some companies, they take an ethnocentric view of staffing. And what this means is that these companies primarily use parent country employees, to staff positions. Another viewpoint or strategy is a polycentric model. Okay, so in polycentric, what's happening here is a company will use host country nationals, or those people that live in the country they want to go to. A third strategy is the geocentric model. Okay, and the geocentric model attempts to always hire the best available person. So the best available person could be somebody in the parent country, could be somebody in the host country, or it could be somebody from a third country. Okay, and this is based upon the theory of having a transnational HRM system. And in a transnational system, decisions are made from a global perspective. Okay, so we're thinking on a global perspective when we make decisions. It includes managers from many countries. Okay, so it doesn't matter if somebody is from the home country or the host country or a third country, it's whoever's best for the job. And then lastly, it's based on the ideas contributed by people representing a variety of cultures. Okay. Because we are considering people from all over, we're going to have quite a cultural perspective. Some time ago, there was a classical study conducted by a researcher named Gerd Hofstede, who was trying to identify dimensions of culture, and he came up with 5 dimensions of culture. Okay, and this has been quite an important study that's been referenced throughout the years and still pretty applicable today as a way to explain culture. So the first dimension of culture, according to Hofstede, is power distance. Okay, so power distance refers to how power is perceived between the most powerful and least powerful in an organization. So let's consider the case of China versus the USA. So power distance in the USA would be very low. Okay, we call people by their first names, and it's very less formal. Versus China, the power distance is very high. There's a huge perceived distance between those at the top and those in the next levels. The next dimension is individualism. Okay, if we consider individualism, we talk about the USA versus China. The USA, individualism is very high. We're very independent. We like to do our own thing. Versus China is very low. They're more collectivist. Okay, they do things more in groups and that sort of thing. Okay, the third dimension is masculinity. Okay, and masculinity doesn't mean, male, female per se. It means traits such as aggressiveness. So if we consider countries like the USA versus China, in the USA, masculinity is very high. Okay, we're a very aggressive society. We go for what we want, that sort of thing. In China, it's considered fairly medium. Okay, the fourth dimension of culture identified was uncertainty avoidance. Okay, and this is how much a society can tolerate uncertainty, if they can handle that well. The USA, it's very low. I mean, we like everything to happen and to happen quickly and that sort of thing. China, it's medium. Okay, then the last dimension, according to Hofstede, is short-term versus long-term orientation. And what that means is how is the society oriented? For example, saving. Is saving important? That would be more of a long-term strategy than short-term strategy. So USA, it's low. Okay, we pretty much want everything right away and pretty much short-term in that respect. China would be considered high. So I hope this gives you an example of the dimensions of culture and how you can use that, but remember, these are generalizations. So we can't just make the assumption that everyone in a culture has these particular dimensions or values. It's just a generality to kind of look at a culture and a situation. So the third major issue involves developing an understanding of the political and legal environment. And this consists of the government stability, okay, which is important in these times of terrorism and governments being overturned. That would be a huge consideration. The laws and regulations would be very important. Different countries have different laws concerning, employment and terminating people and benefits and hours worked and that sort of thing. We would have to consider that. Trade incentives, sometimes governments offer companies tax breaks to come and locate there. And lastly, we have to consider the general economy. Okay, and this would include things like, if there are skilled people in the economy and if people have the ability to pay for goods and services. So all of these things have to be considered in terms of ethics. Okay, we have to have ethical considerations. Watch the video about the apple plant in Shenzhen, China, and you'll see an example of this. We have to consider things like corruption and child labor and the environment and various things when dealing in other countries. What are the issues in the international transfer and assignment of expatriates? As you know, expatriates is what we call people who go to another country to work. The first issue would be from where are we going to select them? Okay, so selection. And we talked previously, selection could be from the parent country. Okay, it could be from the host country or the country where the company is setting up business, or it could be from a third country that's neither the parent nor the host. Okay, so with all of these, however, there have been some criteria for success. Okay, and what research says is that expatriates are successful if they have competency in their area of expertise. Okay, so it's just like any job. Expect that they know a lot about their area. They're a subject matter expert. They have to have the ability to communicate, and this is very important. Okay, they have to be able to communicate verbally and non-verbally. Okay. They have to have flexibility. Okay, you have to be fairly flexible to be able to go work in another country with all the uncertainty, to have a tolerance for that, of the ambiguity, and be sensitive to cultural changes. Okay, so sensitive to other cultures and where people are coming from. They need to have motivation to succeed. Okay, you have to be very motivated. It's not easy. It can be very difficult. Okay, they have to have a willingness to learn about the foreign country. Okay, so they have to be interested in the country and excited about learning about it, and with, getting involved in the culture and that sort of thing. But what has been shown through time is that these things are important, but what becomes very important is the support from family members, especially if the expatriate is married and has children. It's very important that the family be supportive. Another very important issue having to do with expatriates is training. And it's very important that training and development occurs before, during, and after an international assignment. This can consist of things such as cross-cultural training, which is very important so that somebody goes to another country, they understand what's going on. Can be language training. A lot of companies also include the family. So we have family cultural training, okay, which is very critical to the process. And it's important that these things lead to development. And in many companies, having an overseas assignment is part of a person's development. It's part of their career path. Another very important issue concerning expatriates is compensation. Okay, so how will the expatriate be compensated, and what benefits will they receive when they're on an international assignment? So we have to consider the pay structure. Okay, so the pay structure would ask questions such as, should we pay the person what they're used to in their own country? Okay, and if we do that, that could be more or less than what they would get in the other country. Or should we pay them according to the earnings of their colleagues in the country they're going to? Okay, and if we do that, if it's very low, why would the person go? We would have to incentivize them. So what we have to do is find something that is fair and that's related to the value the employee brings to the organization. So what companies do is a very complex process. Okay, so companies used a balance sheet approach to computing this. Okay, and this is a very specialized HR skill. In fact, it's normally subcontracted out to a company that specializes in these sorts of calculations because they're so complex. So a balance sheet approach is used to adjust the compensation to get the same standard of living as in the home country, plus extra pay for inconvenience. So it's very complex because it has to consider, the tax structure of the United States and the place the person's going, as well as the cost of living. So you can see where that would become fairly complicated for somebody to figure out. Those are the main points of Chapter 16. I hope you enjoyed Chapter 16, and I hope you consider going on an international assignment sometime during your career.